Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We've done several stories on how the Scottish justice system is skewed towards the perpetrator and away from the victim. How sometimes the worst crimes attract no prison time, or at the very least a very short term in prison. Some of the vilest people walking free. We have another one, this time a man who of course identifies as non-binary, as though that's some kind of excuse. Sexually assaults a child in their sleep and walks free from court. That's how little the Scottish justice system thinks of the victim, that they don't even want to protect them. And of course, who oversaw this change in the law? Well, it was Humza Yousaf, a man who seems determined to ensure that whatever you do to a child will, relatively speaking, go unpunished. You wonder why he's so determined for this to happen. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? But then we know what the P stands for in SNP. We'll take a look at this story, see who this vile individual is, make sure everyone can see his face and knows who he is, and then let's hope that nature takes its course. Here goes. So, Scots sex attacker who molested sleeping child walks free from court. Oliver James Bond, called Lucas Cole throughout the trial, changed his name because obviously doesn't want people to know who he is, but we've got both names out there, so however you know him, was placed on curfew for 6 months and ordered to carry out 250 hours of unpaid work as a direct alternative to custody. We don't want a direct alternative to custody, we want custody. We want 30 years for people like this. So there he is, pretending not to be a he because he's an inadequate mentally ill man who likes to touch children. That's him. Take a good look. So a non-binary sex attacker, he's a man, who molested a sleeping child during a campaign of abuse has been allowed to walk free from court because the SNP don't want to punish people who do things to children. The SNP want to normalise, the abuse of children. It seems to be their raison d'etre. And remember, everyone who votes SNP is voting for this policy, is voting to put these people on the streets, to let these people go unpunished. So when you see an SNP voter, remember, they're pro-child abuse. There's no other way around of looking at it. They are pro-child abuse because they keep voting for the party that's pushing this policy. Oliver James Bond, who changed his identity after being convicted of a sex attack on a transgender victim in a previous case, so he's got form and he's still let go, dodged prison for a second time. We have to ask why. Well, it's simple. We don't want to put child abusers in prison. That sends the wrong message, says the SNP, says Humza Yousaf. The 32-year-old, who was called Lucas Cole throughout the latest trial, started sexually assaulting the boy when he was 15 or 16 years old. A jury at Perth Sheriff Court found that Bond carried out further attacks on the same victim over a period of 6 years. So he's got form for doing something similar earlier, had a trial, got away with got punished but not a prison sentence last time, does it again, but this time to a child, and does it for 6 years, so it's a pattern of abuse. This man is not safe, he will continue to do this, this is what he is. And the courts, because of Humza Yousaf's rulings, have said no, we won't put him to prison again. We'll just release this monster onto the streets so that he can be near your children. Bond was found guilty of indecently assaulting the boy at an address in Milner Thorpe between July the 1st, 2010, when the victim was 15, and December the 31st, 2010. Bond carried out a serious sex attack on the boy while he was asleep and incapable of giving consent. The fiend was found guilty of sexually assaulting the same victim in Kinross between September the 5th, 2013 and September the 4th, 2014 in an attack which started with Bond repeatedly grabbing the teenager's private parts. Bond struggled with him and pulled down his trousers and underwear before performing a sex act on him. And he's still not in prison because it's okay, apparently, under the SNP for this kind of thing to happen to children and young people. Humza Yousaf, we're looking at you. This is you. You are supporting child molesters and people who do the worst kind of things. Like I say, SNPs. We all know what the P's are. The jury also found Bond guilty of sexually assaulting the victim in Milner Thorpe between September the 5th, 2014 and September the 4th, 2016 by touching his private parts while he was asleep and incapable of consenting. The Crown gave special notice to lead evidence of Bond sexually assaulting a transgender victim in Perth on the 14th of May 2018 whilst he was intoxicated, while they were intoxicated and could not consent. Bond denied indecently and sexually assaulting the male complainer in the latest trial and claimed they were consensual acts between friends with benefits. He was 15, of course. The jury took an hour to find them guilty. Jurors heard the victim described how he'd been sleeping and had woken up to discover Bond carrying out a sex act upon him. This is who these people are. And remember, this is a thing. Non-binary and transgender people, according to the government's own figures, are 10 times more likely to be sex offenders. If you go into a prison population, 6% of prisoners are in there for sex crimes, unless you count the transgender prisoners, for whom it is 60%. Tells you all you need to know. Anyway, he was, and they call him they, but it's not they, he. The accused confirmed he was Oliver James Bond to the court clerk, but was referred to throughout the trial and sentencing as Lucas Cole, and mainly by the pronoun they, them, even though he is a he. Sheriff David Hall placed Bond on the sex offenders register for 5 years, rather than what it should be, for life, although life should really only be about a week till they buy a new rope. He was placed on a curfew for 6 months, that'll stop him, and ordered to carry out 250 hours of unpaid work as a direct alternative to custody. I'm pretty sure that the people of, people of everywhere, people of the world would rather have this man doing custody. Because he's not going to change. This is who he is. This isn't going to stop him. Now that victim, who's been assaulted for years upon years upon years, is still on the street. This guy's still on the street. This victim is going to be traumatised. But the courts don't care. The sheriff said, with some hesitation, I'm going to allow you to remain at liberty. You were convicted by the jury of all 3 charges. You don't get the seriousness of this matter. Why is this judge still in a job? Solicitor David Holmes, defending, noted that the complainer had spent further time with the accused after the attacks and had given evidence in his defence in the transgender case. He said his client would be particularly vulnerable in prison. Good. Tough shit. I hope he goes to prison and I hope he has lots of sex. Lots of it. 3, 4, 5 times a day. Not that he'll be willing, of course, but that's what he needs. Sheriff Hall said that doesn't excuse his behaviour, which he doesn't appear to accept any responsibility for. Jail these people. The complainer came across as a pretty vulnerable individual. Of course he is, and that's why you should jail him. Why is this bastard not in jail? In October 2019, Bond was convicted of sexually assaulting a transgender woman, but a man, at a flat in Perth. He gave evidence in the latest trial to show the similarity of the attacks. Fiscal Deputy Laura Apostolova said the incidents were strikingly similar, because that is his modus operandi now. This is who he is. Nothing will change. This is how he gets his sexual pleasure. This is how he will continue always to get his pleasure. It is fixed within him. He is a danger. He continues to be a danger. He needs to have his balls cut off, and then he needs to dangle. People like this need to dangle. It's disgusting. And they'll stop and come up. I think we can say now, because this isn't the first, the second, third, or even the fourth. There are many of these kind of events where the most awful people just basically get away with it. So I think we have reached that point where we can start saying that anyone who votes SNP is pro-child abuse. And you can just start saying it outwardly. Someone say, "Oh, I vote SNP." You say, "Oh, right, so you're very much pro-child abuse then." It makes you a bit disgusting. I don't want to talk to you. Things like that. And actually put the stigma on it. Put a stigma onto the SNP that pro-SNP, pro-child abuse. That's because that's where we're at, isn't it? They bring these laws in. Humza Yousaf brings these laws in to stop child abusers and worse going to prison. You have to ask why. Why is he so pro-child abuse? I can only think of one reason. I'm sure you can too. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. Definitely hit the subscribe button. We need all the help we can get to keep the truth coming. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, guard your children, because the courts and the whole justice system won't. Bye.